Welcome everybody, Mr. J. Gilbert here, and you are about to embark on one of the greatest top 10 lists you have ever seen in your life. That's right, 2024 brought us a lot of games, but also a lot of time to play those games. This is my top 10 list of the games that I beat in 2024, and I'm going to tell you right now, not all of those games were released in 2020. That's right. Sometimes I went back to play a couple older titles, and man, were they good. We're going to talk about it tonight here on the Mr. J. Gilbert channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment of what your favorite game of 2024 was, or what you think of my top 10 list of the games on there, right? We're going to start off with a little bonus game before we get to the top 10 list. Boy. For the bonus, I have Still Wakes the Deep. It is a first-person kind of horror narrative that's set in 1975 on an oil rig in the North Sea, and the game is pretty linear. Like, you don't have a lot of open-world aspects of it, but it really leans into this horror of drilling down deep. They uncovered something, and this monster that's kind of taken over the oil rig, and you're really focused on the characters and the aspects of the friendships that have been kind of bonded and formed, and you really actually start to grow fond of a couple of characters in the game that later on I kind of got really vested. I'll say I don't want to spoil too much, but the bonus game that I have Still Wakes the Deep, and I fully recommend you guys check it out. It is actually a really just fun experience. I played on Xbox Game Pass. It's only about 4 hours long to beat, so it's not super lengthy, but it's still worth your time. Clocking in at number 10, we got Star Wars Outlaws, which is a single-player, third-person action-adventure from Ubisoft, set in the Star Wars universe, obviously, in between the events of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I really wanted to love this game. I did. I'm such a huge Star Wars fan, and I was actually excited for the chance to play a Star Wars adventure that wasn't centered around lightsabers. Like, I know you play Star Wars and you think, oh, I want to slice somebody up with a lightsaber. I get that. But I actually like the Han Solo outlaw-esque world of Star Wars. I was kind of excited to jump into that until the game came out, and it just was not that. I feel like it kind of lacked soul. I feel like it kind of lacked direction. It really seemed to me like Ocean's 14. You know those movies with George Clooney and Brad Pitt? Like, this seemed like Ocean's 14 Star Wars edition. And I don't know. It's made a little bit improvements here recently, but overall, I wanted to play it. I played it. I enjoyed it only for the fact of it being Star Wars. If it wasn't a Star Wars game, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it nearly as much and or even played it. So Star Wars Outlaws does clock in at my number 10. My number 9 entry, I got Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I have always loved the Assassin's Creed game, but I just feel ever since Assassin's Creed Origins, when it was in ancient Egypt, that setting, I feel like it's just kind of slowly gone down. Now, everybody's loved Odyssey, they loved Origins, but to me, Assassin's Creed started to become too much fluff. It was too big, too many extra things going on, too many viewpoints to get, and armor sets and ingots and whatever it was. I don't want to say overwhelmed is the right word, but I just got over it. Now, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, again, role-playing game from Ubisoft, set in the Viking time, right? And I always thought that'd be a great setting for a video game, and it turned out it was. Assassin's Creed Valhalla was a great game. It is a great game. I really enjoy the storyline for what it was, but I really enjoyed the storyline because I eventually only focused on that. I hardly did any side quests. I hardly did any side missions. I hardly went and got all the vantage points. I just kind of, about 50 hours, 60 hours in, I just kind of hard grinded the main campaign, the main storyline of it. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. But it just got too much for me, right? Too much things to do, too many places to go, too many people to see, like whatever it was. The game itself, the storyline, was fun. I really liked the raiding system where you're kind of raiding these village towns to kind of build your settlements. I really enjoyed building my own Viking settlement and having to go out and get materials and supplies to be able to build the different like monuments or the different like faction houses, or not faction houses, but like the vendor houses, things like that, right? I really liked building up my settlement in the game. I thought that was a really cool aspect. The raids, really cool aspect. It was too big, too open, too many things to do that some people might like that. But for me, I just got to a point where I'm over it. And I just kind of hard grinded the main campaign to finish the game up. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla does clock in at my number 9 pick. For my number 8th pick, I have Ghost Recon Breakpoint. It's a military tactical shooter from Ubisoft, released back in 2020. But the game is actually really fun. It's a lot of fun. Going in there, you can play up to 4 people. You might solo, but you can play up to 4 people with you, and you're kind of going in. You can go in tactically, you can go in silently, you can just go in guns a-blazing. There's tons of different vehicles to ride in. You can get a motorcycle, tons of different helicopters and turret, like Humvees and things, like boats. A lot of different vehicles. It's a lot of fun. Now, kind of falls into the typical Ubisoft trap of it is an absolutely massive world, and unless you have fast travel points, oh man, it is absolutely brutal. Luckily, one of the guys that I was playing with when I did my playthrough, he had majority of the fast travel points unlocked, so it made it a lot easier, right? You fast travel to a close point, you can parachute down into the landing zone where you need to be and go in and do it. There's a variety of missions to do, and a variety of things to do. It was just a lot of fun, right? But again, it falls into the same trap for me as I didn't do very much side content at all, right? The main campaign itself is pretty long, so you have a lot of stuff to do, and I didn't want to spend all that time doing a ton of extra side missions, even though you can unlock a lot of different weapon skins, vehicle skins, things like that, right? So there is a lot of reasons to do the side missions. It got to a point where I'm already sinking tons and tons of hours into it. I gotta play other stuff. But the game itself, Ghost Recon, was a lot of fun, and it's a lot more fun with people. So I would recommend getting 2-3 of your fellow companions, going in, playing a little Ghost Recon Breakpoint is a lot of fun. I did enjoy it. So that is my number 8th pick for 2024. My 7th pick, I got Resident Evil 8 Village. I have been a long time fan of the Resident Evil series and Resident Evil games, and I have not gotten around to playing Resident Evil Village. It came out in 2021. It's a survival horror from Capcom, and I'm just going to say it outright. I love the franchise. Resident Evil 8 did not seem like a Resident Evil game to me. Now, at one point in the game, you do see how it like all comes back around and kind of all fits into the Resident Evil like lore. But as I'm playing through, there's like lichens and werewolves, and it seemed like a survival horror, sure, but it didn't seem like a Resident Evil game to me. Now, I was still fun. I still enjoyed my time. I just couldn't really get behind the Resident Evil aspect of it. I don't know why that's what I was focused on during the game. I'm like, this is Resident Evil. Ethan Winters is your main protagonist. He was the one from Resident Evil 7. And the storylines go together, so you do start to see how that happens and how they kind of are aligned throughout the game. So it does tie together. For me, it didn't really resonate a Resident Evil game. The game is still fun, though. I do still recommend playing through it, absolutely. You do have a lot of experience with it and the old memes with Dami Mommy. Enough said. But Resident Evil 8 Village is my number 7 pick. My 6th entry is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. I just want to start off with saying Melina Juergens did a fantastic job. I believe she won the Game Awards for Best Actress in Video Games. She does a fantastic job. They do motion capture like on her face. She plays Senua in both games 1 and 2, and it's motion capture. Like she's actually acting the part and not just voicing it. Like she does a fantastic job. But this is a 2024 game that came out this year. It's the sequel to Senua's Sacrifice, which came out in 2017, set in 9th century Iceland. Kind of revolves around the Norse mythology, and you're really kind of battling your inner demon, right? You're kind of you have a lot of inner monologue in the game. It's very deep, very kind of spooky at times, because you're like, where are these voices coming from? Like, who am I talking to? Like, what am I battling? And the writing is fantastic in the game. I do think, if I'm going to compare both of them, I did actually like Hellblade 1 over Hellblade 2. I feel like there's more action in Hellblade 1. That's what I felt anyway. I feel like the writing, I feel like it was just better for some reason. I feel like Hellblade 2 is a lot shorter. It was a lot more talkative, if you will. I mean, they both aren't, but like Hellblade 1 had a lot of action scenes that kind of led up to the dialogue, right? The dialogue led to the action scenes. It was this perfect rotation that was going on. In Hellblade 2, there was just a lot of talking and not very much action that kind of went with the talking. Now, but again, the writing is fantastic. It's absolutely an experience, and I fully recommend that you experience both Hellblade games. They are fantastic. Melina Juergens again did a great job, but the inner dialogue, that you kind of get freaked out at first, like whoa, like kind of messes you for a little at first, right? Till you kind of get used to what's going on in it. But Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is my number 6 pick for 2024. For my 5th game, I got Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, a 2017 survival game from Capcom, where you get the first experience with Ethan Winters and his story, where he came from, because I played 8 right after 7, so you kind of get to see that progression of his character. Well, this takes place in Louisiana Plantation, and you get to meet the Baker family, and then you really get to understand, this is what I feel, you really get to understand the Resident Evil jump scares, the scariness that you kind of have back from like the original Resident Evil 2, where it's a fixed camera angle. Now, this one is first person, so it's really different because most Resident Evils have never been first person, right? So this was first person because it was mainly set to be a VR game, but I really enjoyed it. A lot of jump scares. You could totally tell it's a VR game because they're up in your face all the time, and they're jumping out at you, and they're screaming at you. They're getting right up in your face, so it was perfect for a VR game. Scary. A lot of times where I'm like, nope, I don't want to go there. I do not want to go down that place. You stop that right now. The Baker family is super, scary as they're going on throughout the game. You guys have to fight every part of the family, every family member, if you will. I really did like Resident Evil 7. I thought it was return to form. You think about where Resident Evil franchise has come along, right? Resident Evil 2, great. Resident Evil 3, still good. Short, but still good. 4, okay, yes, 4, but then 5 and 6, what are you doing? 5 and 6, just absolute garbage, I felt like. But Resident Evil 7, return to form. And if you have not experienced Resident Evil 7, I fully recommend it. The Baker family will freak you out, but it's a good experience. So, Resident Evil 7 takes my 5th spot. My 4th spot, I got Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. It's a third-person shooter set, obviously, in the Warhammer 40k universe from Saber Interactive, and this game is a lot of fun. It reminds me of Gears of War. Probably the old school Gears of War, man. Gears 1, 2, 3, where you're just in their face, blood, gore everywhere. Just an old-fashioned beat 'em up, just carnage all over the place. Chaos everywhere. It is a lot of fun. I feel like what I enjoyed the most is actually playing with a couple of my buddies. Now, can do it solo. They have multiplayer if you're into multiplayer. They have operations, kind of like side content. I really like the operations because after you go through the main campaign, they have operations, which are these side missions that kind of help set up the main campaign, right? So you kind of get to see that other side of it, because when you're interacting, there's one point where you had to kind of manipulate some obelisks to be able to attack the Zenitian Lord. Well, you were working with another squad that, who knows what they were doing, right? Well, now there's an operation that has their storyline and what they were doing going to that obelisk. So it is a lot of fun. I like the operations part of it, but I like it when I'm playing with people. You can do it solo. I prefer to kind of play with a squad, right? Space Marine 2 just came out in 2024, so it's still a pretty new game. Got a lot of recognition at the Game Awards this year, and I fully recommend you playing it as well. But the Emperor! We're now down to the top 3 games that I beat in 2024, and any of these 3 games could have been interchanged. Like, they are so good. Oh gosh, this one really threw me. I wanted to give this one higher, but when you see 1 and 2, you'll understand. My number 3 pick is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I have gone on record, and I've defended this game to so many people. It's from Bethesda Machine Games. This game is Indiana Jones the experience, right? You think about if they made a movie version into a video game, this is what this is. There's no skill trees, there's no like weapon sets, armor sets, there's no like loadouts that you need to do. You can learn skills by finding books around the world. It's not necessarily open world, it's more like open zones, if you will. You have different zones where it's kind of linear in the path, but you can venture off and explore a little bit. So it's kind of like open zones, not necessarily open world. But it's the experience of Indiana Jones. Man, you hear the whip crack, the punches, the just over-the-top sound effects of punching someone just like you'd have in the original Indiana Jones movies. This game was so much fun. I highly recommend playing this game. It is just an Indiana Jones experience, right? Very straightforward. You're playing this game about 13-ish hours, do the main storyline if you're not going to do a lot of the side content, but you just feel like you're Indiana Jones, man. It's first person with some third person aspects of it too, as you're kind of traversing throughout the world. But again, it's kind of like a movie version of a game. Like, I could easily see this being a movie. You know what I mean? And it was just such a great time. I fully enjoyed it. Check it out. Indiana Jones, my number 3 spot for 2024.
Don't you want to know what this is all about?
You're damn right I do.
The number 2 spot for me this year came from the 2024 release of the Silent Hill 2 remake of Bloober Team and Konami. They remade the 2001 version of the game, and I have been a huge Silent Hill fan. One of my favorite franchises of all time. I was so excited when they were announcing the remake of this game. I still feel like they should have just done remake of 1 and then 2, right? I do obviously think that Silent Hill 2 had one of the best storylines. You got Pyramid Head as the big bad guy. Like, it's very iconic. It was a great game all around. This game wasn't just a remake. It was a reimagining. There's so many new things that they added into the world, added into the puzzles, and the enemies, and the things you could find, the secrets, and the overall just tugging at your heartstrings. With the updated graphics and the additional content they added into the game, you really got to see the psychological effects that this game kind of had and what it created. And there's so many little Easter eggs that I don't want to ruin for anybody, but man, as you're going through this game, you'll just start to see little things of like, wow,
I just want to get my Mary back.
That's intentional, right? Like, that's in there for the reason of you finding it. You know what I'm saying? And just James Sunderland, the main character of the game, right? Just how he's acting, how he's navigating through it, how he's keeping his cool and composure, and that's so well written. Huge fan of this game. huge fan of the remake of this game. So a lot of people are coming into this game like, oh, I've never played this before. This is my first experience with the game. Oh, it's good, you know, but for those OGs that have played the game back in early 2000s, to playing that and playing this remake now, you truly appreciate it a lot more. You understand the type of love, development, and effort that this remake, that they've put into this remake to make the game to what it is right now. And this is so good. It may be just the nostalgia bug, you know, maybe biting me really hard, but I don't care because I enjoyed every minute of this playthrough. And I think you will too, especially if you played the original back in the day. You will absolutely love this remake. And even if you didn't, it is a great survival horror game that I fully recommend you check it out. Silent Hill 2 is my number 2 pick. Finally, we have arrived at my number 1 pick, and I just want to say thank you so much for sticking around, checking out my top 10 games that I beat in 2024. Pay attention next year too, when I review more games and I drop my 2025 list of games that I play next year and just beat throughout that year. Now, this game comes to no surprise of anyone else that would make the top spot of my top 10 list of 2024. And that goes to Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios. Now, I've never been a Dungeons and Dragons fan, so when I kind of heard about this tabletop fantasy role-playing experience of this game, the turn-based aspect, I used to love turn-based games. You think about like the old school Final Fantasy games, right? I love those turn-based style games, but the whole Dungeons and Dragons aspect of it, you know, where you have to roll for your attacks, and some of the time they miss, and the damage is all off and on. Like it took me a while to get into it. I did not play it on release. It took me a while to get into it, but once I got into it, I was glad that I did. Man, I've sunk over 300 hours into this game because I did a solo playthrough. I did a playthrough with 3 other of my friends. We did a 4-person playthrough. It was a great time. And once I started to understand the mechanics of the game, I really got invested into what they created, right? There's so many different things that you can do in this game. There's so many different side missions, side content, different playthroughs that you can do, and you can role play to your heart's content with this game. One thing that I need to go back and do I have not done yet is a Dark Urge playthrough. That's next on my list to be able to go back and do that. But Baldur's Gate 3, it just blew me away, as it blew many people away. Like, it was a great game, won lots of awards, got lots of attention for good reason. Larian Studios did a great job really creating a very deep game that can be different every time you play it, right? Yes, you're still doing the same missions, right, for the most part, but the play styles can be absolutely different. You can make tons of different decisions that affect your game down the road, affect your story down the road. You can miss out on a lot of storylines because of decisions you make. Like, you just have a lot of freedom with this game, and I'm actually really excited I got to play this game, and it was a great experience for me, and I hope it'll be a great experience for you if you decide to check it out. But thank you overall for tuning in. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to drop a comment below of what you think of my top 10 list. Would you have changed any of the games around? Again, this is just a top 10 list of the games that I beat last year. I beat other games, but I narrowed it down to the top 10. So what do you think of my list? What was your top games that you played of 2024? And let's get a conversation going. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.